Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy, the Meccan Revelations, part 63. 7 times 9. Do with what you will, if you know what I mean. I don't know what I mean. Anyway, today we will be, yes, it's a sign. Thank you. Me. Out on the street. Okay, enough suspense. Those of you who've been following along for the past few episodes know that I've been very mysterious about it, and I've decided to go ahead and reveal it here, but not yet on, I'll just put it here, not yet on Facebook. We're in Mumbai, formerly known as Bombay, and here's some footage of a few things on the way here to this side from the other side. And anyway, yeah, so that's where we are. And the reason I wanted to mention it was we were just looking outside and saw a hawk that looked a little like a vulture, and it reminded me of a story that my dad told me when he and his mother went around the world on the Queen Mary, yes, the very same one that's been parked in Long Beach for some time now, back when it was active. And they came to Bombay. And while he was here, he had a few stories about it, but one in particular was he was staying at a hotel, something, I don't know, maybe he was staying, this is an old place where we are right now, so maybe it was this very same room, I don't know. But he, I guess, went for a walk or something, and he saw a woman's corpse being eaten by vultures. And he looked up in a tree and saw a vulture looking at him. And he said that that was the moment which, looking back, he can say eventually led to him becoming Buddhist. So there's that. Now that was, I think, 1966. I'm pretty sure. I have their, Queen Mary stuff back at home in Goa, so I can double check that later. But anyway, now it's 2025, and Mumbai is very different. As you can see, for one thing, they call it Mumbai. So a lot of places, when the British were occupying, the British gave a name in the Latin alphabet letters that they could pronounce easily. That was kind of their name for it. Like, for example, the Ganges River is the British name for the Ganga. And so after India became the Republic of India, gaining independence in 1948, pretty sure it was 48, one of the things they started doing was kind of going back to the older names. So Bombay became Mumbai, or was originally Mumbai, and then it was Bombay for a few hundred years and was kind of popular in literature and so on as Bombay, and then more recently as Mumbai. Same place. But now we're in the older, more historical part, so I'm feeling that sort of ancestral connection with the old pops. So there's that. Now, I think that was everything I wanted to mention before moving on with the episode. So today we'll go with some water for the beverage. That wasn't everything I wanted to mention. You might have noticed this behind me. Those weren't here when we got here. I put them there not too long ago, specifically to be in the background for this episode. Editor Edward, could we see those up close? So the ones that you recognize from Chicken Philosophy are books I brought with me so that I could continue putting up episodes of Chicken Philosophy while we're on vacation. And the books that are unfamiliar from Chicken Philosophy are books that we bought mostly yesterday and maybe the day before. For example, the all 9 books of the Expanse series. I've seen The Expanse, the show that aired on Sci-Fi Channel years back, 4 times now, to the point where, I'm watching reaction videos, so it's because it's it's hard for me to rewatch it for like a fifth time because I'm like, yep, oh, it's this part. Like I've got it memorized at this point. And so now I can, hopefully satisfy that itch for more expanse or to re-experience it or experience it for the first time in the form of reading the source material. And apparently the show was pretty loyal to the source material, but the show only goes up to here. And then these 3 books happen after the show ends. So I'm going to start at the beginning and eventually go past the show. So, and then this Kal Chakra book, it's over here somewhere, I think, looked very good. A deep dive into this particular, here's another version of that, another version, another version, another version. There's a few things called Kal Chakra, like you might know a few people named Michael. I was going to say Larry, but there's a pretty good chance you don't know anyone named Larry, depending on the generation. Anyway, yeah, so Kal Chakra refers to at least 2 or 3 different ideas. But yeah, so there's a book about that particular Kal Chakra. And what else have we got? Akbar. For those who follow Meccan Revelation, you remember the emperor they were singing about? Oh, you're such a good emperor. We love you so much. That's Akbar. He was the cool emperor that was like, okay, let's make like a syncretization of Hinduism and Islam and Zoroastrianism and Christianity, and we'll make that the official, like philosophy practice of India. And, but you can have your own, you can be, a Hindu, but like we can all meet together on this, and then his grandson was like, nah, fuck that. We're going to be fundies, Islamic fundies. And so Akbar was cool, and it'd be nice if more of that kind of thinking was in the world these days, in my opinion, which is not humble. Let's see. So we've got this incense is a little bit of a mess, but I'm going to go ahead and go with the Mira Amber today. So there it is. And, okay. Yes, it's one of my favorites. And I'll light it over here so it doesn't bug your ear so much. You might notice a little less noise pollution in this one than there was on that balcony when we did Tao Te Ching Part 9. And today's incense burner is keys, actually. It works very well, I find. Okay, so there it is. Now we're ready to begin properly the episode. So we'll start with the bibliomancy. This is Hafiz poetry, and we're going to read a poem called, I've read that already recently. I think I haven't read this one. We'll see. It's called Then Winks. Everything is clapping today. Light, sound, motion, all movement. A rabbit I pass pulls a symbol from a hidden pocket, then winks. This causes a few planets and I to go nuts and start grabbing each other. Someone sees this, calls a shrink. They had those back then. Tries to get me committed for being too happy. Listen, this world is the lunatic's sphere. Don't always agree it's real. Even with my feet upon it, and the postman knowing my door. My address is somewhere else. Today was a good one. He doesn't always nail it quite as thoroughly as he did today. Okay, cool. Now we will pick up right where Frater BT left off in part 62. Oh, and we're still reading Michel Chodkowitz's introduction to volume 2 of the 2 volumes of his translation of the Meccan Revelations. The reader of this second section can already see a complicated network of correlations. This will continue to be the case up to the last page of the Futuhat. Among the different parts of the book, chapters 146 and 147 on heroic generosity and leaving it behind thus echo chapter 42 in the first section. An invisible thread similarly ties chapter 66 on the secrets of sacred law, end quote, which is located in the Fasl al-Ma'arif, to chapter 88 on the foundations of sacred law, end quote. Okay, but also to chapter 262, which belongs to the third section. Third section, I only have 2 books. Maybe there's a third, never mind. And deals with knowledge of sacred law, end quote. Only tremendous familiarity with the Futuhat allows the reader to decipher this subtle crisscrossing of internal references. We will offer other examples, or to identify and correlate the myriad variations on a single theme, each isolated treatment of which gives a glimpse of only one aspect. The apparent arbitrariness governing this hodgepodge can be trying. The fact that it looks like a test is probably deliberate. Whether we accept the inspired nature of the work or not, this would be the case for any initiatory teaching. But if we are not resigned to being led unrefusingly through the most disconcerting of detours and the most unforeseen recurrences, we are doomed to draw nothing more from the Shaykh al-Akbar's knowledge than an abstract, mutilated geometry. Now remember, Shaykh al-Akbar is Ibn Arabi. That was the name that was given to him post-mortem. No relation to Akbar, the emperor. The emperor could have been named after Ibn Arabi. I don't know. Probably not. There's probably some earlier reference that both of them are named after. I wouldn't know. The subject of the 80 chapters in the third section is spiritual states. Like the word maqam, station, which is its correlate, the Arabic word hal. That's, I'm sure not, it's probably more like hal, but I decided to go with hal just for today. Belongs to the classical vocabulary of Sufism. Sufism or Sufism? I don't know. Where its introduction as a technical term is attributed to Dul Nun al-Misri, dated 245 or 859 according to the common calendar. It is defined in all the great treatises of Tasawwuf literature. Can you name 5 great treatises of Tasawwuf literature? Neither can I. Ibn Arabi keeps and refines these traditional definitions that oppose the unstable, bestowed hal. What was hal? I've already forgotten. Oh, station? Yes. Okay. The correlate Arabic word. Oh, no. Hal belongs to the classical verb. Okay. Maqam is station, which its correlate, the Arabic word hal, belongs to the classical vocabulary of Sufism. But it doesn't say what it means. Let's assume that it means station, I guess. I don't know. All right. Hal to the maqam. I guess, I don't know, which is both stable and acquired, underscoring that the fundamentally impermanent nature of any spiritual state can be masked by the succession of states that have a certain similarity. Although it is a precarious grace, Hal is also a perilous grace. Like other masters before him, but perhaps more clearly, the author of the Futuhat, Ibn Arabi, emphasizes this point. Quote, this is Ibn Arabi talking, "It is the ignorant individual who says that the saint is he who has spiritual states. God sometimes confers a hal upon those he loves, and sometimes upon those he does not love. But he confers knowledge only upon those he loves." End quote. So, there's some people God does not love. I know some of the Christians watching, those anuses are snapping shut, or whatever the polite way of saying that is. Never mind. Yes. In other words, the goal of the way is not to obtain fleeting charismatic gifts, which the authentic wali, far from seeking them, fears. The goal is rather knowledge of God. I think we've talked about this before as a little bit of a correlate in the siddhis that one obtains in yogic or Buddhist type practices. Yes. Quote, "In the perfect individual, every time his station rises, his hal falls." I don't quite understand it, but I feel like there's something there. Perhaps the second or third time I rewatch this, it'll click. Perhaps not. Perhaps later when this new hal concept, is it station or not? As he said, when you get a new station, the hal falls off. But if hal is station, then what are you talking about? Come on, man. The awhal, both the number, parentheses 100 for Ansari, 1,000 for Ruzbehan Bakli, ... end quote, end parentheses, and terminology of which vary greatly, can be reduced to a limited series that, because they still belong to the world of duality, usually arranges them into pairs of opposites: drunkenness and sobriety, contraction and expansion, extinction and permanence. These pairs are found again in the third section of the Futuhat. 7 double letters. 7 times 9. Episode 63. Someone dragging furniture upstairs across a stone floor. Wooden furniture. Heavy wooden furniture. Stone floor. Isn't it lovely? I sure wish they'd stop. Maybe they're done. Nope. Another little squeak. It's moving furniture time in the middle of chicken philosophy. Isn't it nice? Okay, chakung. All right, we'll do our best. These pairs are found again in the third section of the Futuhat: union and separation, proximity and distance, etc., where they are included in a typology that is as broad as it is deep. But there is also a quite long chapter on breath, which, among other correlations, returns to a theme first mentioned in chapter 15, and in regard to the divine names, brings up ideas that will come back into view 2,000 pages later in chapter 588. Don't worry, they didn't translate the whole thing. So we don't mean 2,000 of these pages. We mean 2,000 pages of a book, volumes of books that some of which got translated. Seriously, guys. It's pretend it's the weather. Oh my God. I understand why Americans shoot people. I really do. I don't advocate it, but I get it. No, never mind. I'm Indian, if you were wondering, if you couldn't tell. What was that the other day that we were going to the airport and the security saw my Indian ID and said, "You're Indian?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Half Indian?" And I said, "Yes." And I took off my glasses so he could see my blue eyes. And then he looked at me funny, and the guy behind me started laughing. And then I said, "This is my wife." And then he was like, "Oh, okay. This is my Indian half over here." All right, maybe they're done now. Maybe not. Yeah. Okay. In chapter, yes. Similarly, also the meaning of kausain, which is exactly how you pronounce it. The distance of two bows, a Quranic expression that relates to the Prophet's ascension, envisioned here in chapter 2260. In Quran 53:9, that was a reference to. Will be returned to in a different fashion in a later section. Section 4, the Fasl al-Manazil, in which there are 114 chapters, like the surahs in the Quran, to which they correspond in inverse order, is devoted to the spiritual abodes. At least it's just Michel Chodkowitz. They're not doing this while I'm reading Ibn Arabi, except when he quotes him, but the word manzil, in accordance with etymology, the word manzil refers to, quote, the place where God descends toward you and where you ascend toward him, or alayi, end quote. And if you're thinking, isn't that thing where, never mind. It's, Hebrew and Arabic are similar, but this is not referring to that. Anyway, for each act of worship, Ibn Arabi states, did I skip a page? No. There is a corresponding effect produced in the being of the worshiper by the state or hal. Okay, so hal is state, but not station? I don't know. We'll see. That the act has engendered in him, or like created in him. On the one hand, and an effect in divinis, an effect produced by the station, or makam, to which the act is attached on the other. Okay. This is what is called a manzil. There are pages of paramount importance in this section, like those in chapter 366 on, quote, the ministers of the Mahdi. Dune fans? You know what we're talking about. Sorry. Who will appear at the end of time, or at the beginning of the Dune series, depending on how you look at it. You got Messiah and children and God Emperor after that, and heretics and chapter house, and nothing else. Those other books don't exist. I've been over this already. Anyway, end quote. Or the pages in chapter 367 cited earlier where the Shaykh al-Akbar, or Ibn Arabi, recounts his miraj, or the page in the long chapter 371, which is accompanied by a number of the author's schemas, and which is a masterful outline of his cosmology. The following section is the section on the munazawat, a word used to express the idea of reciprocity, and which is here applied to the, quote, meeting at the halfway point, end quote, between God and man, tree of life me. That'll be the yellow one. No, I'm just fucking with you. I mean, maybe. If only things were that simple. End quote. Thank you. At the precise spot where the divine descent and the creaturely ascent converge. Nobody's listening anyway. It's just Michelle Chodquist doing an introduction to book 2. So it's just me talking to myself anyway. This descent, which cannot affect the absolute transcendence of the essence with a capital E, is, properly speaking, a theophany, which is like God appearing, like that one time in South Park. You know, I mean, I guess it happens more than once, depending on how you look at it. That last one was pretty ballsy, right? Kyle's mom going up to Netanyahu, giving him a piece of her mind. Anyway, and strictly speaking, the encounter in question is thus for man, and I wasn't expecting this one to be like worse sound-wise than the last one that was shot outside in a busy area. Like, this is just vile.
Yeah, they're actually coincidentally dragging furniture up.
It's really just the worst. And strictly speaking, the encounter in question is thus for man an encounter with a divine name. 2 of the most characteristic chapters in this part of the Futuhat, among the 78 that comprise this fossil, are FASL, not FOSSIL, are the chapters 427 and 432, whose subject is the Kab Cow sign previously mentioned in the fossil al-Ahwal, as we noted. Despite appearances, there is nothing redundant about this. Chapter 260 hinges around ways of getting the creature to realize divine proximity. Chapter 427 looks at this proximity more specifically in that it concerns the prophet himself, and chapter 439 in that it applies to the Warithun, the heirs, that is, okay, the saints, them, okay. Each of the successively considered munazalat is characterized by an emblematic phrase, often either of Quranic origin or bestowed from a hadith Qudsi. You know, those things in the hadith, the Qudsi. All right, anyway, that defines its nature and status. And then something in italics, so presumably this is either from the Quran or from the hadith or Ibn Arabi. He won't say. He who has seen me has not seen me. He who bows before my majesty, I descend toward his. If you held the place among the creatures that you hold with me, it would not be me that they adored. It is your perplexity that has led you to me.
You don't know me.
Oh, that's fun. All right. The Fossil al-Makamat, the, quote, section of spiritual stations, end quote, stretches out over nearly all of the 4th volume and entails 99 chapters, a number that is identical to the number of divine names on the traditional lists. We mentioned the general meaning of the Makam earlier. A couple of additional observations might be in order here. One remark from Ibn Arabi's commentary in his Tarjuman al-Ashwaq, or the Interpreter of Desires, deserves note for what it says about the reality of the stations. Quote, the Makamat, end quote, he says, quote, have no existence except through the existence of him who holds to them, end quote. The common idea of a ladder of stations existing by itself and available to anyone who undertakes the task of climbing up through the degrees of the ascent toward God is thus not appropriate. The rungs of the ladder appear only at the moment that the aspirant raises his foot and begins to set it down, and the way they are distributed is in line with the predispositions of each individual being. This is why, I love that. I sometimes jest by referring to the Golden Dawn rather than the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn as the Procrustean Order of the Golden Dawn, referring to Procrustes, who had a bed that you could sleep in, but if you were too short, he'd stretch you so you'd fit the bed, and if you were too long, he'd whack part of you off. I mean, like cut it off, like your foot or the top of your head, so that you'd fit in the bed and you wouldn't be too large for the bed and you wouldn't be too small for the bed. So in other words, it's a commentary on, like, if someone's like, yeah, I'm not so into the fire and brimstone of the Tower card portion of the Philosophus initiation. What do I do? And then the teacher says, fucking get over it. You're going to be Hyrus next week, so, learn your lines. You're going to be the Old Testament shouting guy. And then you're like, but I hate that. It traumatizes me. And they say, well, get over it. There you go. I don't know if it's an exact one-to-one correspondence with what he's saying, but that's kind of like the reference being made in referring to the Golden Dawn system as Procrustean. But he's talking about, it's not that the ladder is already there. 0 equals 0, 1 equals 10, 2 equals 9. It's that when you reach and grasp the rung of the ladder, it appears, and it is exactly where it needs to be for you personally. A personalized system of initiation directly from God. It's so good, right? I mean, the idea of it anyway. It's a good idea. I mean, by the very nature of implementing and systematizing anything, it can't be like systematized. It has to be divinely inspired. Good, right? I mean, it's a nice idea. This is why we see so many differences from one author to the next in the hierarchy and number of stations. It's a good reason, right? It's because it's different for each person, not because, he's wrong and he's right. Which one is right? They can't all be right. They must all be wrong except for one. Okay. On the other hand, quote, traveling through the maqamat does not consist in leaving one maqam behind in order to reach the next one, but rather in obtaining something that is higher than it without leaving the station you have already been in. It consists in going toward, not leaving behind. End quote. This is, I'm guessing, separate from the idea of abandoning a station, so you can maintain the station and also gain another station, so you can step up to the next rung of the ladder while still maintaining your foot on the rung that came before. So the ladder metaphor just sort of falls apart at that point, right? The result is that everyone in possession of the maqam eminently possesses the preceding maqamat also. And finally, as is also underscored in the passage cited earlier from the commentary on the Tarjuman, the, quote, perfect Muhammadan heart, end quote, that of the Awliya, who have gathered together the fullness of the prophetic heritage, is, quote, liberated from the chains of the maqamat, end quote. This idea is a leitmotif that runs through all of Ibn Arabi's work, most frequently in reference to Quran 33:13, which is cited in the first lines of this fossil. At the end of the ascension, there is no longer a maqim, and from that moment on, there is no longer a maqam. I like the idea of my understanding of leitmotif. I don't think I need to have Editor Edward put it up there. It's a song or a bit of a song, a melody that appears, or goes along with a particular character in a story. So in a movie or a play, for instance, when that person appears, or sometimes when they're spoken about, you hear their song being played. And you go, it's their song. It's the Wonder Woman song that plays way too often in the Schneider cut of the, you know what I mean, like. Or whatever it is. So saying that this idea of the, whatever it was, the liberated from the chains of whatever that whole thing we were just talking about is a leitmotif that runs through Ibn Arabi's work. And now they've taken up the power saw. So that's fun. I'm going to go ahead and close here. And, yeah, this was fun. If by fun you mean something other than the standard use of the word fun, surely. But doesn't mean it's not fun in some other usage than the normal one. All right. So, who am I today? Or who am I supposed to be? I was supposed to be Gwydion. I forgot to apologize. Sorry, Gwydion, for taking your spot today. So next time, Frater BT might be doing Carl Jung's Black Books Part 86. Or I might be doing it in his place. I don't know. We'll find out together next time on Chicken Philosophy. And, all right. I guess that's it. I'll go ahead and close then and wish you all the best. And, yeah. I got to go to, what's the first part? TB Frankie's or? Tibbs Frankie's, this place, and get one of these. It's Indian junk food is what it is. It's like a deep fried burrito, but with paratha instead of, a tortilla. And there was a guy who started making them at a gas station in Los Angeles, and it became insanely popular. Pan-fried curry chicken. So that was good. We had that earlier. And so next time you're in India, keep an eye out for Tibbs Frankie's. That's my advice. And I will go ahead and say good night or good day or whatever it is, wherever you are in time. Have a good one and enjoy it. And until next time.